Hi there. Hi there, Benji.
Everything ready?
Yeah, I've been ready. I'm waiting on. Well, I'm gonna watch it while we're doing it. But
Yeah, watch while we're waiting.
what are we waiting for?
Ashley, to get back.
Oh. Wait, where'd she go?
Back to the bridge, and there'll be a little gold hand on each lever that indicates the hour hand and is set by all the stuff that you were doing back on the other side of the boat. It isn't affected by the main lever on that particular lever arm in the bridge. This way, if you're stuck on this, you can read the entire time from just a single thing instead of having to run all the way back across the map. I also want to quickly note that the leftmost lever arm in the bridge is set from the right-hand side, whereas all the others are set from their left-hand side. I've just got to make that clear. Don't get confused about it. Don't invert your times or anything like that. Just do it normally, but set the leftmost one from the right-hand side and all the others from the left. Once you have fully entered your times, you will hear a sound cue that sounds something like this. And you will then be ready to start the electrical outlet step. For this, we're going to be running around the map again, looking at some spawns to begin with, and then I'll explain how this step is going to work. The first spawn I'm going to be showing you is just through these doors here in the state rooms. You go on the left-hand side, and there is a power outlet or wall plug socket just on the left there. Another possible spawn is up at the top of the upper grand staircase. Come to this side and you should see the outlet just there. Another possible spawn will be in the first class lounge. This is the same area that has the Zeus perk machine, and just on the side of this wooden beam type thing here, you'll have another possible spawn. Then going down a floor to the dining hall with the raw perk machine, there's another possible spawn just here, and you can see it's actually lit up there in my game. If you then come to the back side of the ship and head on to the aft decks, behind a rebuildable barrier you can see another possible outlet spawn, and then finally going all the way to the back of the boat into the third class berths, there's another spawn just down here by the staircase. So now that you know all those locations, I can kind of explain what's actually going on. Basically, in your game, 4 of those outlets that I just showed you are going to all be sparking once you complete the previous step of the egg. And they'll be sparking with different elemental colors. Those colors will be gas, water, electric, and fire. And each one has a matching special catalyst zombie on the map. You need to locate your 4 elemental power outlets and then bring the correct special zombie to each outlet and kill it in front of the outlet to create a teleporter pad on the floor. However, there are definitely some quirks to this step. You can only create 1 teleporter pad per round. That's the orange symbol on the floor that you get once you have actually killed one of the special zombies near the correct outlet. Once you've created one in 1 round, you'll just want to flip over to the next round and then get a different special zombie and do a different outlet and create a different portal. You can then also, if you so desire, actually enter the portals that you're creating each round that you make them, or you can save them all up but later in your game and do them all at the same time at a later round if you so desire. It's just the creation of the portal pad in the first place that has to be spaced out on a different round each time. The portals themselves need to be activated in a specific elemental order. That order is gas, water, electricity, fire. So if you don't get any gas zombies, you won't be able to make the portal right next to the gas outlet, and you therefore won't be able to do any of the challenges until you do eventually get a gas zombie and are able to make your portal. Now the portals themselves take you to little mini lockdown events in which you have to kill a load of zombies and typically a couple of Blight Fathers and a bunch of Stokers as well. The first challenge, the gas one, is not too bad, and the game gives you a max ammo, so you won't need to worry too much about it. You should be able to jump into it pretty early in your game and still complete it if you've got some reasonable firepower and you use your specialist weapons. To teleport, run over to the pad, and if you've got a team, have them all come as well, and hold square on top of it. They should light up while you're standing on it, by the way. When you're done with the challenge, you'll get teleported back to the kind of real world of the map, and a white sentinel artifact will appear that you need to pick up before you are able to activate any other challenge portals. The second challenge is the water one, and this one is really quite difficult. I recommend that prior to doing this, you make sure that you have drained the water in the cargo hold, just because the water is going to fill up in the cargo hold through this step, and if it starts off drained, it just makes it a little easier to get some kills from the beginning of the challenge. You're going to be stuck in the cargo hold as the water rises, and Blight Fathers are going to spawn down there, and so for this one, I typically don't suggest to my team that we start it until we have either Krakens in our game, or we've got people with the homunculus, that's the monkey bomb on this map, or we for some reason have serious firepower with pack-a-punch guns and things along those lines. This is just a little bit of a difficult challenge. Note that this challenge won't give you a max ammo. When you successfully complete it, you should see that a white sentinel artifact just floats down and you need to grab it again before you can do the next challenge. We're now going to basically rinse and repeat for the electricity and the fire challenges. The third challenge reverts back and now does give you a max ammo again, which is nice, and is fairly straightforward as well. This one's not too difficult. And then the fourth one can be a little bit worrying because you go right down into the turbine room of the map, and you're in a very confined area, but what I recommend you do is run up the slope here and get onto the catwalk so you can hold down each side with your teammates and take out all the Stokers that are inevitably going to run at you. Monkeys are really useful for this one as well. Once you finish this fourth and final challenge, run back down the slope once you spawn back into the map, and you should see a gold sentinel artifact to pick up. If you see this and you grab it by holding square, you know that you're ready to move on with the Easter egg. We're now at the point where we need that elemental kraken that I mentioned earlier in the video. I have a full guide on how exactly you upgrade the kraken itself linked in the description down below, and in the top right hand corner of the screen right now, just click the card and it will link you straight to it. However, for now, I'll just give you some brief pointers. Obviously, you need your 3 buildables parts in order to actually craft the elemental kraken. You're specifically, for this Easter egg step, looking for the concentrated decay. That's from gas zombies or acid zombies or decay zombies, whatever you want to call them. They're basically going to drop like an acidic kind of moldy heart, and that's the item that you're going to need to use to upgrade your kraken, because if we have a fire, water or electricity one, this step is just not going to work. It's one of the reasons that I said you should start hitting the box as early as possible in your game, because you want the kraken really early on so you can start already getting kills on those gas zombies with the kraken to try and get the heart so you can do the upgrade. Remember as well that the elemental upgrade itself is going to cost you 3,000 points. With your elemental decay kraken, come to this room and start shooting all of these blue pipes that I'm shooting in this gameplay here. There are 9 of them in total, although they won't always be necessary for the step, but you may well end up shooting all of them anyway. Now, we're not just shooting the pipes themselves, but there's actually leaks coming from the pipes in the form of steam, and we're going to cause that steam to turn into a water spring. So when you have successfully shot one of the patches of steam on the blue pipes, you should see that there'll be little drips of water flying out instead of just the steam effect, and then you can move on to the next pipe. It can be a little difficult to hit them sometimes, and some of them are in really dark corners, so look under the walkways in that room. They'll all be in that room with you, look directly up at the ceiling, try to look at the ceiling from various different angles, that sort of thing, and you should be able to spot all 9 blue steaming pipe leaks. Once they've all been converted into water leaks, the room will begin to flood with water. Once it's flooded, you're going to want to check if the Pack-a-Punch is already in that room with you. If it is, fantastic, because we're going to be Pack-a-Punching the Sentinel artifact as the next step. However, if the Pack-a-Punch isn't there, you're going to need to go to the next round and move the Pap until you have it spawn in that room, and that's when you'll be able to Pack-a-Punch the Sentinel artifact. When you're doing this, it should just give you a little hint string saying, hold square to Pap the Sentinel artifact, so you don't need to do anything special to actually put it in the machine. With the artifact Pack-a-Punched, there will now be 9 symbols on the map that you need to run around and hold square on. I'm going to run through all the locations now, and while you don't need to write anything down here, I do highly recommend that you get familiar with where all of these spawns are, because it's going to be essential knowledge in the next step of this Easter egg. So, here are the 9 spawns. The first one's in the bridge, it's just on this kind of wooden cabinet here. Then if we zoom down the metal stairs here towards the spawn area of the map, there's an area called the Forecastle, that's this elevated bit up here, and there's a second symbol just there, the circular one. Then we're going to zoom down into the mail rooms, and there is a third symbol just on the wall here.
Already did.
Kind of crevice. Then we're going to zoom back up and into the state rooms, that's what this area of the map is called. Go left out the morgue and go into this room, and behind the plant you can see another spawn. Then if we zoom through into the millionaire suites, which are down here, you can see another one under that table. Then if we go up the stairs here into the lower grand central staircase, we can see another symbol just there. Going up the staircase a little more, and a little more, I nearly messed up there. We can go onto the aft deck if we go through the mid deck here, and on the aft deck there is another spawn inside a life preserver, or a life ring, or whatever you want to call it. Then zooming through even further through the map, we can go down into the engine room, and in engine room there is going to be a spawn on the floor, just outside the Odin perk machine, so we're going to take a right here, and right on the floor in
Specs is now open. Come see us soon.
front of Odin, you should see that one quite clearly. And then the last one, if you're coming again in the room from that same entrance, is going to, instead of just going to the Odin perk, take a right at it, and it's going to be just here. But this one's unique in that you have to lie down in order to activate it. If you have subtitles on, each time you activate one of the symbols, it will say the name of an element, like copper or uranium or etc, etc. Now, the reason that I said that all these locations are so important is that this next step is going to require us, and I know this sounds wacky, but it's going to require us to shoot all of the planets in the solar system out of the sky, and we're going to collect them in the 9 locations that we have just been looking at. On screen right now is a compilation of all of the planets which correspond to all of the areas that we have just looked at, and it will become clear in just a moment how this all pieces together. Once all 9 symbols have been held square on and activated, you can go down into the cargo hold, and you should see a crate in there which has burst open or something, and inside is a model of the solar system. Don't do it just yet, make sure you've got your bearings first, but when you hold square on it, it's going to light up a sequence of planets, and you need to write that sequence down, or memorize it, or record it somehow, just from seeing it blink through its little order. Now you'll notice that there's actually an order to the way this little device has been constructed. The closest planet to the Sun, Mercury, is right at the top. And then as you go down, the planets get further and further away from the Sun, ending at Neptune. Pluto is not a planet. So you've got Mercury, this kind of dull purplish one. Venus, this burned orange one. Earth, that's obviously us. And we have our Moon, which we can see in our sky. Mars, which is the kind of bright red one. Jupiter, which is a gas giant, and it's a big orangey browny one. Saturn, which is kind of iconic because it's yellow and it's got those rings, is huge as well. Uranus, which is a kind of slightly larger and pinky coloured one. And then Neptune, which is blue and is really far out. Watch the order blink through red sequence, and then it will always end with the sun. Now we have an order of planets that we need to shoot. All we need to do is go upstairs from where we were in the cargo hold and look in the sky. And you'll see that that same celestial layout of all the planets are up there, ready to be shot. And the sun is even included in the center there. It doesn't matter that it's nighttime in the map and you can see the moon really clearly. The sun is up there in the center as well. You can figure out which planet is which in the sky from their colors and their proximity to the sun. You'll be able to see that some planets are very close to the sun.
Soaking up knowledge?
Mercury
Kind
and
of, but I mean,
Venus
I'm
are
still gonna have to
always going
rewatch
be
it as we
really
do
near
it, because
However,
Okay.
other planets like Neptune are very far away. In fact, Neptune is always skirting along the horizon on the map. And what that means is that you need to look for it dipping in and out of the water away from the boat, as opposed to being actually inside the sky itself. Now, don't do this just yet, because you're going to basically be on a challenge round now where you might not be earning any points from getting kills. You definitely don't want to mess this step up and have to go a new round, because you're probably quite late in your game. It's all getting pretty tense. And this step and onwards can also be a cause of blue screens. When you know which of your planets is first, you need to look at the guide reference that I've got on the screen right now and see which location it corresponds to. This is definitely most easily done in a co-op game, but it's definitely possible in solo too. You just need to shoot the planet which is the first in your sequence, and it will then become a blue orb, and it will fly down and crash into the symbol location that I showed you previously inside the map locations that I'm matching on screen to the planets right now. So Saturn, for example, is always going to drop in the bridge. The moon is always going to drop where that crescent moon symbol was on the lower grand staircase level. Now, when you shoot a planet, it's going to despawn zombies, and they are going to respawn and basically run towards you and the orb itself. And so what you ideally need to do is time it so that you can shoot the planet and then arrive at the location where it will land as soon as it gets there. You don't want to leave it there for long at all. You do have a 30-second timer to actually grab it, but in my experience, there's a lot of instances that I've had in my games where I've been shooting with splash damage and the zombies have been attacking the orb and it's disappeared for one reason or another that I haven't been able to figure out. You obviously want to avoid that in your game. You also want to avoid getting swarmed while you're grabbing it, and so I recommend you trying to time this one quite well. Communication with your teammates here is key. If you're in solo, communication with your monkey bombs is probably a better bet. If you first activate the planet sequence right at the beginning and you miss the order, you should be able to reactivate it once, and you'll be able to reactivate it the next round as well. Also, if you fail this step in any way, so for example if you shoot the wrong planet, or you fail to collect your planet in time, or it disappears for an unknown reason, or whatever might happen, you just fail the step, you'll be able to go into it the next round instead, and you'll have to go back from the beginning. The only celestial body in the sequence that is unique here is the sun. And the reason it's unique is that, well, okay, it's not a planet, but neither's the moon, but also, the sun cannot just be picked up by one person, whereas all the others can. Instead, for the sun, you need to meet it as a team at the forecastle. And when you do so, and you all hold square together, you'll be teleported into a further time trial sequence. Now, again, this is why I wanted to be so clear with you guys, to not jump headfirst into this until you really knew what was going on. Thankfully, you can kind of take breaks between planets. You don't have to shoot all the planets in one massive long go. You're going to do one, you're going to collect it, then you're going to decide when you want to shoot the next, you're going to collect it, etc. That is not timed, but because the step is so easy to mess up, it's worth taking extra care. When you do eventually get to the sun and you all hold square and activate it together, you'll be teleported to this time trial like I've just mentioned, and the way it's going to work is that there'll be ice blocks in your path, and you're going to need to break them using your krakens, other weapons, and especially the laser beam on your Scepter of Ra. That thing is amazing for this, and you basically need to fight and melt your way all the way through to the other end of the ship. where there'll be one last big block of ice waiting for you, which you need to break, and you'll then have completed the step, and there'll be a teleporter pad on the floor afterwards, which will take you to the boss fight when you choose. Now, I think the absolute best way to do this is to make sure that when you decide to shoot the sun and bring it down and then hold square on it together with your team, you have at least one Scepter of Ra in your party, whether it's you in a solo game or multiple of you and your friends in a team. You're going to want to have someone pop the Scepter of Ra straight away and start melting those ice blocks on whatever route you decide to take. The others should be covering them and making sure they are safe, but not spamming too much probably, because you don't want to accidentally blue screen your game here.
What y'all making with the meat, Richie?
Going to get a max ammo midway through this, so bear that in mind, and there are one or two ice blocks a little later on, just before you get to the poop deck kind of area, which can be a little tricky because it gets so tight, so beware for those. At this point in the game, you're kind of expected to have multiple Krakens if you're in a co-op game, and probably multiple people with monkeys as well, and all those sorts of bells and whistles, your perks, etc., ready to go, and so they do turn the difficulty up a little bit here, but you should be okay as long as you're prepared, and remember, you're timed. You're going to eventually freeze if you don't run fast enough, and if you freeze, you're going to have to repeat this entire step. Assuming you don't freeze, though, and you get through, you break that final ice block right at the end of the boat, and you unlock the boss fight portal, you're then able to go whenever you want. Now, a couple of words of advice before you go to the boss fight, because it's really, really important that you don't run into that one without having thought about it a bit first. The boss itself has 5 stages, and the first couple are completely fine. You should be able to get through them without a crazy huge amount of difficulty, certainly relative to the final stage. Now, in the final stage, the boss has a wipe mechanic, which means that he has a way of killing your entire team all at once if you don't interrupt him and prevent him from doing so. The community's tests so far have seemed to suggest that the Kraken, upgraded but not elemental, is one of the best things to use in that interrupt sequence. Obviously, upgraded guns that are quad repacked are also a very good shout too, but the upgraded non-elemental Kraken is currently a community favorite. The problem with the elemental Kraken upgrades is that they don't actually really go far enough in order to damage the boss a lot of the time, and so you have to get the decay upgrade, obviously, for the Easter egg. But if your friends are also getting their own Krakens, consider having them not get an elemental upgrade on it and just keep it as a big old cannon. Another important point to consider is that, yes, you had to have the decay upgrade on your Kraken for the earlier step in the Easter egg, but there's no reason why you couldn't A, trade it out and then get a new Kraken and start again, or B, and this is what I really would recommend as being a preferable option, get an ice upgrade for it, that's the concentrated purity, instead of your decay. The ice upgrade for the Kraken, in my opinion, is fantastic. It shoots the cannon and leaves a kind of swirly mist that slows zombies down, and it's great for killing stokers too. It's also fantastic for keeping your team alive while they shoot the boss, and they'll probably be using their bullet weapons while you are using this AoE to make sure they're not taking any damage. An important point to note is that at the end of the boss fight, there's only going to be a KN-57 available on the wall to buy, and you might need extra ammo, so consider the KN being your second gun from your Kraken in your run. Obviously, if it's quadruple packed, that's definitely going to be a benefit for your team. Anyway, that's enough kind of prerequisite stuff. Obviously, get a shield, guys, and stuff like that, but once you're all perked up and ready to go, everyone needs to go over to the portal and hold square on it. You'll then teleport to the boss fight. But there'll be a little sequence first where you need to swim forward here towards this tree and hold square together again. Now the boss fight begins. It will start off and you'll be shown the boss. And for this this stage, you just need to kill ants. Those are the extra zombies that aren't the main boss, but are still just roaming around, making your life difficult. Kill as many of them as you can, as fast as possible, and you'll end up getting Stokers and Blightfathers spawning as well. You just need to take them out and try and get used to the kind of chaos of your entire team running around in one place like this and messing up each other's hordes, etc. An important point to note is that you'll get a max ammo and a carpenter as soon as you arrive here. The carpenter obviously refills your shield, unless it's broken, and the max ammo gives you a max ammo. Now, that will be there for the entire
We're already as close as we're gonna get.
stage, and when you get to the end of the stage, your screen kind of color will lose the boss fight filter on it for about 10 seconds, and you'll have a very small window of time to grab the max ammo if you haven't already grabbed it, and therefore have full ammo going into stage 2. Each stage is going to give you a max ammo and a carpenter like this, and so you want to be trying to be smart about how you conserve your ammo and save the maxes and carpenters while not losing your shield and not running out of ammo and then dying because you were trying to be kind of too greedy with your ammo. Once you've killed enough of the regular zombies and the Blightfathers and the Stokers, etc., you'll be teleported to phase 2. This one is significantly more tight, but that doesn't mean it's not manageable. You just need to try and spread your team out smartly in the playable space. You can definitely have people running around on the ground floor while someone is staying up at the sort of top end of these stairs here and trying to do their best not to get in the way of their teammates while also keeping themselves covered and covering their team wherever possible. You need to be very communicative for this one because Stokers will just zoom in and suddenly appear, and you'll get multiple Blightfathers as well, which can be quite difficult in this particular tight, narrow space. Stage 2 is the same as stage 1 in that it's just killing ants, that's all you've got to do. You don't need to worry about the boss too much. It's actually stage 3, though, where that changes. Here, you are in a very narrow space in the staterooms, and the boss will, at the beginning of the stage, fire its beam down each corridor to just give you an idea of how exactly its mechanic with its eyeball is going to work. The way the boss takes damage is that when it's firing its eyeball laser beam, it's exposed and you can hit marker it, and so you need to see it firing that beam and have a teammate cover you ideally or throw a monkey and then plow into it with as much damage as you can. Now remember, your elemental upgrades here are not going to damage the boss at all. They're just not. So you can use those for AoE crowd control while your team shoot the boss, but if you're shooting the boss, you probably want to be using a bullet-based weapon. The third stage doesn't last too long. Make sure that you're being mindful about your gobblegum usage, your specialist weapons as well. Those things can come in absolutely clutch. I also recommend that, assuming you have it at level 3 at this point in your game, you plant your staff down if anything gets extra crazy, because you'll then be able to revive yourself and the rest of your team, even if all of you go down, as long as one person can crawl into the radius of your bubble shield. So in summary for this one, just whenever the boss is shooting down the corridors, peek out around the middle and shoot into its eyeball. You should get hit markers on it, that'll indicate that you're actually doing damage, and eventually the stage will end, you'll be cleared out of there and put into stage 4. Stage 4 is one of the ones that I'd say is not too bad. This again is going to be a case of shooting the boss inside its pupil while it's shooting you, and you'll basically get hit markers when that's happening, but then you'll also get an indicator that you're doing good damage to it when its eye cracks and goes red. That's a sign that you're actually hurting the boss and you're doing well. Now here again, our kind of strategy in this particular gameplay was for me to cover my teammate because I had that frost upgrade on the Kraken and he had a massive LMG that he could just lay into the boss with, and that seemed to be really effective. There were also a couple of times when there weren't actually many zombies left around while the boss was shooting, and so it was the perfect opportunity for me to shoot into the boss with my Titan as well. Beware Stokers and Blightfathers here once again, because regular zombies are just not an issue, but those guys, especially the Blightfathers, can absolutely mess your run up. I mean, both of them, Stokers and Blightfathers, can do 100 damage melee attacks, and you don't want to be caught on the end of one of those, so be careful. Once you're done, grab your max ammo and your carpenter if you haven't already, and then you'll be flung into stage 5. This is where the wipe mechanic applies. applies, so please be careful here. The way it's going to work is that the boss is going to teleport around the sides of the arena. There are going to be a bunch of zombies, loads of Lightfathers, loads of Stokers. It's going to be chaos. And you need to, again, wait for the boss to be shooting with his beam before you start spraying into him with your bullet weapons, preferably. You should be able to make use of the terrain here, especially the ramp up to the elevated area where you picked up the Sentinel artifact at the beginning of your game, and then the drop down on the left or the right hand side to get some good angles on the boss and evade the zombies as well. And once you do enough damage, you will trigger a scream from the boss that you should hear, and your character might say something as well, and the wipe mechanic will initiate. As soon as you hear that scream, and you see the boss teleport and start to sort of charge up, you need to start shooting into it like crazy. It's exceedingly important here to stun it out of its animation, otherwise it will kill everybody on your team. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, if you've got Dying Wish available, that will save you here, but it's not going to save you more than once. It's Dying Wish after all, it only really works once in a boss fight. So, because you've got to go through multiple wipe mechanics in order to actually beat the boss, you're going to need to get good at shooting it as soon as it starts screaming and interrupting it pretty damn quickly. Remember what I said a little earlier as well. Use that regular upgraded Kraken without the elemental effects while it's in the wipe mechanic in order to stun it and stop it from killing you all. That's a really good weapon for it. You can also use things like this Titan LMG that I'm using right here. Seems to have done an effective job. You're going to essentially have to go in circles here several times, and it's going to be very similar to the previous stage in that the eyeball will go red and kind of shattered when you're doing damage to it, and that's an indicator that you're doing well and you've nearly killed the boss. Eventually, after you've gone through enough cycles of this wipe mechanic, you interrupting it, the boss being unhappy, and then you killing a load of ads and trying to get shots on it again, it's going to do one final charge up, which you need to just spray into like crazy, and then when you successfully interrupt it, that will actually be the end of the boss. You'll have completed the Easter egg, and you'll be into the cutscene pretty much straight away. If that is the case for you, then congratulations. You made it, the trophy is all yours, and I'm hopeful that you've had fun in the process as well. I've tried to make this guide as comprehensive and clear as possible, as I do with all of my no-nonsense guides. Mr. Ruffles here. This is my no-nonsense guide for you to upgrade this gun, the Kraken, in Voyage of Despair. And, surprise, surprise, the first step you need to do in order to upgrade the Kraken is to get the Kraken. And you get the Kraken by just spinning the mystery box. Nice and straightforward, and you can actually make it a little bit more easy for yourself to get the Kraken if you go into custom mutations and you turn off a lot of the other weapons in the map. So, for example, if there's only pistols available and the Kraken in the mystery box, you can grab both the pistols, buy Mule Kick, and then force the game to give you the Kraken, because it's got nothing else to give you from the box. That's just one option for those of you that want to do this in mutations, though. Obviously, this works in classics as well. Just spin the mystery box until you get the Kraken. Now, another thing that I'm putting in here at the beginning of this guide is unlocking the Sentinel, or rather, securing the Sentinel artifact. The reason for that is that this is going to open up a bunch of doors in the map and allow us to travel a lot more freely. And so, I think that this really should be the first thing that you do in any of your games. Is just a good idea. So, that's what I'm doing here. You run over, you hold square, you're done. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the part spawns that you're going to use in order to actually upgrade the gun itself. If you're coming up the stairs on the right-hand side here from the spawn, and you're running through to the Grand Ballroom, as you can see here, or the upper grand staircase, you come down the stairs, go through this door on the right-hand side, and there's a sloped wooden door. On this table, there is a potential...
Bathroom, I think.
part spawn. Also, on the other side of this room, on the left-hand side here, there's another potential spawn, and that's where I had it in my game. Now, I have never seen a third part spawn for this, but if there is one, if you can't see a part in either of those locations I've just shown you, don't worry, I'll simply list it and detail it in the description down below so that you guys can still do this. But I'm pretty sure, as far as my 100 restarts have told me, that there are only 2 parts available for that particular spawn, or 2 spawns for that part, rather. Now then, we're going towards our next possible spawn location, and this is kind of in the same sort of direction that you previously have gone if you were going over to the Sentinel artifact from the spawn, but halfway there, we're going to start going down these stairs. That's going to lead us to a kind of kitchen area, and on the countertop there, you can find a little tube part. Alternatively, another spawn location for it is through this corridor and on this set of shelves. You can see it looks like there's a kind of funnel there, and then it goes into some metal tubing. That is your second part, and once again, if you're missing it, guys, description down below. I'll have you covered. So now, we're in the spawn again, you just saw Danu. We're going for our third part, and this time, instead of going up onto the ship, we're going down right where we were and into the water. Now, you can turn the water off, or rather you can drain the water if you like, but you don't have to in order to grab this part. Simply swim towards the Pack-a-Punch pedestal, and then turn around, and on the right side of the room there, you should see a part. It's like a coiled spring. Then, another spawn for it can be a little further back, just sitting on those wooden boxes under the water. Now remember, if you're going to drown down there, you can drain the water, you're okay, but you should be able to jump in and jump out without any hassle. Now that we've got all 3 part locations, we can actually build the upgrade bench itself. And so one last time, I'm running, this time with stamina up to make things a little bit easier for you guys to watch, from the spawn area up and onto this top level mid-deck part of the map, across around on these boats, and then swinging back onto the aft decks, and we're going to go down the slope and past the buildables bench that we used previously for the shield. That is not the bench that we want to use. Instead, we're going under the artifact side this time. So go past that wall weapon, run down this corridor, and again, I always say you can drop down there on the left if you like, but just for the ease of viewing, I'm going to go down the stairs here. Then there's another